Greetings, American literature students. This video is for Tuesday, April 7th. You will be finishing the short story from Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. And the short story you have been working on is The Sweetheart of the Song Bong. Yesterday, when you were reading, you were introduced to Mary Ann Bell and Mark Fossey. And Mary Ann Bell, when she arrives in Vietnam, is a beautiful young woman filled with innocence and kindness. And she is sort of that American girl next door who Mark Fossey has fallen in love with. At the end of The Sweetheart of the Song Bong, Mary Ann Bell has changed tremendously. And that is the first thing that I want you to notice about the reading for today, is that she undergoes this complete transformation. I'm going to start my reading today on the bottom of page 105. If you happen to have the book, I do have it on the screen right now, so you can find it in the PDF version as well. Mary Ann, he said, quietly then. She stepped out of the shadows. At least for a moment, she seemed to be the same pretty young girl who had arrived a few weeks earlier. She was barefoot. She wore her pink sweater and a white blouse and a simple cotton skirt. For a long while, the girl gazed down at Fossey almost blankly, and in the candlelight, her face had the composure of someone perfectly at peace with herself. It took a few seconds, Rat said, to appreciate the full change. In part, it was her eyes, utterly flat and indifferent. There was no emotion in her stare, no sense of the person behind it, but the grotesque part, he said, was her jewelry. At the girl's throat was a necklace of human tongues, elongated and narrow like pieces of blackened leather. The tongues were threaded along a length of copper wire, one overlapping the next, the tips curled upward as if caught in a final shrill syllable. And now I'm going to skip down a little bit. My second point that I want you to pay attention to is this concept of being consumed by Vietnam. And it really rings true in this part of the page. This is on page 106. And you'll see that I have it highlighted on the screen. And I'm starting right here in the sort of the middle of the page. And Mary Ann Bell said softly, "You're in a place where you don't belong." She moved her hand in a gesture that encompassed not just the hooch, but everything around it. The entire war and the mountains and the mean little villages, the trails and trees and the rivers and the deep misted over valleys. "You just don't know," she said. "You hide in this little fortress behind wire and sandbags, and you don't know what it's all about. Sometimes I want to eat this place, Vietnam. I just want to swallow the whole country, the dirt, the death. I just want to eat it and have it there inside me. That's how I feel. It's like this appetite. I get scared sometimes, lots of times, but it's not bad, you know. I feel close to myself. When I'm out there at night, I feel close to my own body. I can feel my blood moving, my skin and my fingernails, everything. It's like I'm full of electricity and I'm glowing in the dark. I'm on fire almost. I'm burning away into nothing. But it doesn't matter because I know exactly who I am. You can't feel like that anywhere else." And so Mary Ann Bell describes this idea of being fully consumed by Vietnam. Now, I was just watching the tail end of the Vietnam War movie entitled Platoon, and that gave me an idea for all of you. If you have extra time, which you might happen to have right now, and you are okay with seeing movies with swearing and gore and death and war, some of you may want to check out some of the famous war movies about the Vietnam War. So here are some ideas that I looked up, and I'll include a link as well. One movie that came to mind was Good Morning Vietnam, that stars Robin Williams, and it came out in 1987. Another movie is Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise, which came out in 1989. Another movie, Platoon, that's the one I was watching this afternoon, starring Charlie Sheen and William Dafoe, comes out in 1986. Full Metal Jacket, starring Matthew Modine, came out in 1987. Apocalypse Now, starring Martin Sheen, came out in 1979. Deer Hunter, starring Christopher Walken, came out in 1978. So obviously, filmmakers were dealing with that idea of the Vietnam War from the late 70s and well into the 1980s. A later war movie was We Were Soldiers, starring Mel Gibson, which came out in 2002, but it still does focus on the Vietnam War. And then finally, Forrest Gump, starring Tom Hanks, comes out in 1994. And that's a little bit of a softer, kinder version of the Vietnam War. So make sure that if you're going to watch any of these films, that you are okay with seeing these things. And again, do not watch these films with some of your younger siblings around. So and those movies are entirely optional. You do not have to watch them, but some of you may enjoy watching those and enjoy seeing the Vietnam War brought to life on the big screen. Have a great Tuesday.